The only thing that I'm a little bit disappointing right now is that it's over. Heineken Rivalry Week is over after El Trafico, and that I just feel like just need another dose of this Heineken Rivalry Week because holy crap, what a crazy weekend this was, and that I think this might go down as the best Heineken Rivalry Week I have ever seen in MLS before. I mean, throughout this week we saw a lot of crazy thing, and throughout these last 5 games, we also pretty much saw everything. We saw records that was fall in some of these games. We saw a stoppage time that probably is the best stoppage time that we have ever seen in this season. We saw a couple of blowouts. We saw Hell is Rio, and then we saw El Trafico. And we also saw in a game where, once again, LAFC could not beat the Galaxy as this game ended in a free draw. And that if you tune into this game late, yeah, I definitely feel sorry for you because holy crap, this game, the hype surround this game was really surreal coming into this one. But the fact that the first 15 minutes where this game went from pretty much already at 100 mile per hour to probably going 1,000 mile per hour is just insane. Like there was goals flying everywhere. There was just non-stop goal scoring. Like you couldn't literally step away from the game without missing some action that has happened. But to talk about the craziness that happened in the first 15 minutes, it all started in the second minute when Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored from Pavone to give the Galaxy a 1-0 lead. Obviously, you know that an El Trafico, it isn't an El Trafico if Zlatan does not score against LAFC. Like, you know how yesterday I said Joseph Martinez is basically the daddy of Orlando City? I have a feeling Zlatan is the daddy of LAFC because this guy just cannot stop scoring against LAFC, and that it seemed like this is his favorite opponent whenever he, of course, take on the pitch because he knows that he's going to score against them. Now, LAFC did get the equalizer 12 minutes in when Blessing scores to tie the game up at 1 apiece. But I put the question mark, was this actually offside? Because originally, on the development of the play, it looked like Beitashour was actually in an offside position. And even when the ball was delivered into the box, it looked like Blessing was in an offside position too. But they didn't go to VAR to see whether or not if this was an offside or not. And then 3 minutes later, guess who? Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored from Fabian Alvarez to give the Galaxy the lead once again at 2-1. And I also wrote, was this offside too? Because when you look at it originally, it looked like Zlatan was a hair offside. But I guess, if they didn't look at the last VAR where it was very close, and that, in this instant they don't look at VAR in this instant too, I guess it's kind of even, the fact that, when you have two calls that probably should have gone to VAR and that it didn't really go to VAR and it's in favor of one team, I guess maybe that's equal balance at the end of the day. Although I really felt like they should have looked at VAR in both of those incidents. And I think the reason why they probably didn't look at it is because the flow of the game was just so fast and so wacky that they just didn't want to disturb with just a random VAR play. And then literally after a minute when Zlatan, of course, scored the goal, Pavone would get into the action and score the third goal for the Galaxy from Fabian Alvarez to give the Galaxy a 3-1 lead. I believe this is the first ever goal that Pavone has scored for the Galaxy and his first ever MLS goal. I'm not quite sure if that is the case. If you're a Galaxy fan, let me know in the comments below if it's actually true that this is his first ever goal in MLS. And if it is, what a time to score your first ever MLS goal in one of the biggest rivalry, if not the biggest rivalry right now in MLS. Now, the Galaxy, of course, went up 3-1, and despite the fact that there wasn't really any more scoring until late in the first half, the pace just continues. Like, it was just on and off and on and off. And you know how I said back in the Orlando City versus Atlanta game where the pace of that game was just very frantic and it was almost like watching a hockey game? Yeah, this was basically what this game is, except in that game, it was the first 20 minutes. This was the first 45 minutes where it was up and down and up and down. It was like literally watching soccer on ice and literally just watching a hockey match rather than just a soccer match that it is. And I kind of feel like eventually both teams, of course, would be tired out, but that, of course, is not the case. I mean, the pace just continue, and then eventually the LAFC did find a way to get back into this game and did get a goal back after Blessing, of course, not equalized, but got a goal back for LAFC to make this one at 3-2. The Galaxy doing after they went up 3-1. They had a couple of chances to potentially even make it 4 or even 5-1 in this game and just continue to put this one away. But, the game stayed at 3-1, and that it did allow LAFC a chance to try to get a goal back and really set up a very intense second half, which that is exactly what happened right before halftime. And in the second half, LAFC kind of took over. So in the first half, I thought it was kind of an even kind of game, although it was really the Galaxy that were kind of the more clinical side in the first half. But the second half, it was pretty much LAFC, and I have a feeling the Galaxy was just, they're trying to hold on to this 3-2 result, which, I don't think that was a great strategy for GBS to decide that he wants to hold on to a 3-2 result against a team that is not only the best attack in the league, but literally the best team in the league. And eventually, it didn't take long for LAFC to break that Galaxy resistance. When in the 7th minute, Carlos Vela scores from Marc-Anthony Kaye. I actually didn't mention this on the board, and I probably should have mentioned that Carlos Vela actually did win off in this game right about the 71st minute mark. And when he went off this game, he was absolutely livid. Like, he was very angry the fact that he was being subbed off. I mean, I know he kind of suffered a bit of a hamstring kind of injury, but he just didn't want to get subbed off in this game, and that eventually Bob Bradley literally had to come to him and kind of explain why exactly he needs to be subbed off. And I think this was definitely the right move for Bob Bradley to do, considering the fact that, Vela is literally Mr. LAFC. He's literally your golden goose, and that there is no way, especially with the way that they're just so far ahead in terms of the Western Conference standing and the Supporters' Shield standing, there's just no point to really risk it, even though I know this is El Trafico, and I know before Bob Bradley and a lot of the fans in LAFC said that this is really the game that, if there's any game that we want to win besides MLS Cup, if there's one thing that is still left unchecked in the book of us being the greatest team in MLS, that it is beating the Galaxy in El Trafico. And that, I think it was very smart to know that in the long-term future, and that in the time when they are going to be making when the playoff begins, I feel like if they decide to just put Vela in this game and play her, you basically risk him to potentially suffer another injury, and that it can even worsen that hamstring that he has. So, yeah, I understand why Bob Bradley does that, and I also do understand why Vela was absolutely upset about that, because you don't want to be taking off in a game such a magnitude as this, and that, you want to definitely be there to be the influencer. But, he did came off, and that Brian Rodriguez actually made his debut in this game. I thought Rodriguez was okay. I didn't think that he was that spectacular, but then again, it's always hard to make your first game and your debut in basically one, if not the most important game for LAFC in this regular season, and that I'm guessing he probably have some nervous kind of moment, and he doesn't really have like that chemistry that a lot of these players that LAFC has right now. So, he was okay, but he wasn't spectacular in many ways, and definitely looks nothing like the $10 million that LAFC paid for him. But again, I'm not going to judge him with the fact that this is a complete waste of money by getting him just because the fact that he just made his debut and that he only had 20 minutes to run in this game. And it was also a bit of an awkward kind of debut too, where, you know, a lot of fans, they were not happy that Vela was coming off, and some of them even boo when Vela, of course, were coming off the field, and then he basically made his debut just like that. That's kind of a very kind of awkward kind of moment. But, you know, as I said before, for the entire second half, LAFC really just dominate this second half, but they couldn't quite find that decisive fourth goal, as the Galaxy really kind of, like, once this game went to 3-3, they really started to sit deeper and deeper into their block, and that they were just holding on for dear life, that hope that they can, of course, get a free draw in this game, and the fact that they will still hold that bragging rights as that they're the only team able to win El Tráfico, which is exactly what happened after this game, as the game ended in a free draw. And in terms of shots in this game, LAFC had 27 shots compared to 10 that the Galaxy had, 10 shots on goal compared to 6 that the Galaxy had, 13 shots off target compared to 4 that the Galaxy had, 4 shots out was blocked compared to none that the Galaxy had, and possession-wise, 65% possession compared to 35% possession. And there's no doubt that LAFC absolutely dominate the stats, but at the end of the day, you know, the Galaxy, despite the fact that I know they'll be disappointed that they of course, blew a 3-1 lead in this game, I think they'll be happy with the fact that they were able to hang on and get a point out of this game, and that, you know, not many teams can go to Bank of California Stadium and even earn a point out of that. So I'm pretty sure that they'll be very happy about that. And for LAFC, you know, they're going to be a little bit ticked off. The fact that, you know, they're going to have to wait till next year until they, of course, gets a chance to finally get a win in El Tráfico. Or maybe they might have to wait in the playoffs if both of these teams, of course, meet. And hell, I really hope that this is going to be a playoff matchup. Like, if last year when we saw the playoff matchups between the Timbers and the Sounders in the playoffs was that exciting, I can't imagine what this game is going to be like in the playoffs. Like, this game is just going to explode if this one will be a playoff kind of matchup. But we shall see if that, of course, is the case, or whether or not we're not going to see an El Tráfico until next season. Now, moving on into the next match is the Rocky Mountain Cup. So, this was definitely, for about 89 minutes, this was kind of a forgettable Rocky Mountain Cup where there wasn't really much happening. And then after the 89th minute mark, all hell broke loose in this Rocky Mountain Cup. But first of all, I want to give a quick shout out to whoever decided to put a Shut Up Alexi banner right at the supporter end. I mean, throughout the game, you can literally see the banner puts there. And I guess this is another example of some of the supporters in MLS are tired and very frustrated with the new policy that MLS has put, where you're not allowed to put any political kind of meaning signage into MLS Stadium, and that, you know, I'm not quite sure what Alexis Lawless says that basically really upset the fans even more, and that, you know, maybe he said he is support with this new policy, and that of course angers the fans. But yeah, it's clear that some of the fan base want to put up a big message on that, and I'm interested to see what Alexi Lawless would say about this. Like, I haven't heard anything about what his reaction is to this banner, but, you know, it will be very interesting to see what his reaction is. And I bet whatever his reaction is, everybody's gonna hate his reaction, because he's one of the most hated person in MLS right now. Now, going back to this game, in the first half, Colorado looked like they were the better team in the first half, and they should have been up 1-0 in the 26th minute when there was literally a big scramble in front of the goal, and that somehow, in some way, that ball did not cross behind the line after Nick Raimondo made a couple of decent saves, including the one where the ball was kind of like floated in, and he basically just literally at the last second kind of reached his hands up and kind of swat that one away from crossing the line. I mean, it was just such a big scramble, and that I have no idea how that one did not end up into the back of the net. Now, in the second half, and actually just fast forward into the 89th minute, because this is where I want to talk about this game, because for the first 88th minute, Colorado kind of were the better team, but they weren't able to put away their chances, and the same goes with RSL, that kind of started to get back into the game in the second half, but they couldn't put away their chances. But as soon as we hit the 89th minute mark, this is when all hell broke loose. And it all started with Kai Kamara getting sent off in the 89th minute, because, a Rocky Mountain Cup is not a Rocky Mountain Cup without a sending off. Remember what I said in the preview where, despite the fact that a lot of people don't know this, but the Rocky Mountain Cup has always featured a sending off, and that there's always somebody that just kind of lose their cool and that made a dumb kind of a mistake to get themselves sent off. And here we have it again with Kamara with a bit of a serious kind of foul to get himself sent off in the 89th minute. Then, literally about a minute after that sending off, DeMar Kreilach looked like he scored the winning goal of this game, but apparently when they go to VAR, they said that the goal, of course, was offside, and it wasn't the fact that DeMar Kreilach was in an offside position, but in the development of the play as the ball was coming into the box, Jefferson Savarino was actually in an offside position. But then there was also a debate of when the ball was kind of floating in, did Jack Price actually touch the ball? Because Jack Price kind of took a bit of a swing and a miss as he was trying to clear the ball, and that, if he did touch the ball, then Savarino would not be in an offside position because that just reset the play. But when they look at VAR, they saw that Jack Price did not touch the ball, and it was just a swing and a miss of him trying to clear the ball away, and that is the reason why that goal did not stand. But 4 minutes later, RSL won a penalty, and this was a handball on Lawless Abubakar, and I know Colorado fans are not going to be happy with this call because of the fact that, the ball kind of bounced off of his leg into his hand, and the fact that, what can you do about that when the ball didn't actually hit your hands in the first time? But I just feel like Abubakar, with his hand just kind of like way outstretched and kind of in an unnatural position, it doesn't matter if it just came off of your shoulder or not. If your hand is in an unnatural position and the ball actually strike your arm in that instant, then that, of course, is a penalty. So, yeah, that penalty, of course, was given, which João Plata, of course, was able to bury it to give RSL a 1-0 lead. Then they basically iced the game 3 minutes later when Savarino scores from Rusnak deep into stoppage time to win it 2-0 for RSL, and that is the final score of this game. As the shots in this game, there was definitely a lot of shots in this one. 19 shots compared to 20 that Colorado has. Both teams had 6 shots on goal. Both teams had 8 shots off target and 5 shots that was blocked compared to 6 that Colorado has. And possession-wise, 67% possession compared to 33% possession that the Rapids had. And with this win, RSL win the Rocky Mountain Cup once again, and that this was definitely a big victory for RSL, because if they would have drew this game, I would think that this would have been 2-point drop for them, considering the fact that they're playing a Rapids team that is not very good this season. Although, as I said before with the Rapids, they tend to be kind of like a spoiler team, even though they are not going to make the playoffs. And I thought for sure that they were going to once again play that spoiler road and decided to not let RSL get all 3 points in this game. But that, of course, is not what happened. And thanks to that madness in stoppage time, RSL secure all 3 points to keep themselves, I believe, in 4th place in the Western Conference. But moving on into the next match is the Quakes. So, I don't know what I'm more surprised about this match. I'm not sure if I'm surprised the fact that multiple records was fall in this game, and that the Quakes had 43 shots in this game. Yes, that's right. I did not misspoke whatsoever. They had 43 shots in this game and 19 shots on goal in this game, and yet somehow, in some way, they were only able to score 3 goals out of those many chances that they had. But thankfully, they were still able to beat the Whitecaps 3-1 in this game. And for Maxime Crépeau, yeah, he basically did something that no goalkeeper in the history of MLS did in this game. Now, in the first half, 6 minutes into this game, Vancouver actually took the lead in this game. So, despite the fact that I know a lot of people will remember this as probably the most dominant performance one team put on another opponent, it's kind of ironic the fact that the team that just dominated this whole game did not actually got the first goal, and that it was actually Vancouver that got the first goal when Jake Nowitzki scores his first ever goal in MLS to give Vancouver a 1-0 lead at that point. And I put shocking defending from the Quakes because, yeah, it was shocking defending, especially Vako, where how in the world do you get out-muscled by a center back on an attack? Like, that is just absolutely embarrassing. And that, the good news is Vako did kind of make up for it, and that, he did kind of had a good game in this one. And in fact, I think pretty much every Quakes player had a very good game in this one. And that, early on, the defense was really, really shaky, and it was proven once they conceded that goal in the 6th minute. Now, to the credit of the Quakes, they did not capitulate, and that they actually respond immediately after going down 1-0. And when I mean immediately, I mean just 35 seconds after they go 1-0 down. It's Judson that scores from Espinoza to tie the game up at 1 apiece. That's also Judson's first ever goal in MLS. So if you like to see players that get their first ever MLS goal, then this of course is the game for you. And Judson is not the last player on this Quakes team that actually got their first ever MLS goal in this game, as I will also mention later on that another guy for the Quakes actually got his first ever MLS goal this season. But after that, the Quakes absolutely dominate this game. This is when a barrage of shots started to come in Kripo's face, and that, Kripo was basically trying to channel his inner David De Gea to trying to keep this game tie as long as possible. But unfortunately, in the 34th minute, Wando, of course, scores from Youngworth and Eriksson. And anytime when you decide not to mark Wando on a corner, that is a very, very criminal thing to do, and that you definitely deserve to lose if you decided to not mark the greatest goal scored in MLS history on a corner. And that is exactly what happened in this case, where Wando was just wide open in the back post, and all he has to do is just going to head it away, which he did exactly that to give the Quakes a 2-1 lead. And, after that, once again, a barrage of shot came into Kripo's direction, but Kripo did a good job keeping this game at 2-1. And by the end of the first half, the Quakes had 25 shots in the first half, and that they had 10 shots on goal. And get this, 81% possession compared to 19% possession that Vancouver has. Like, I don't think I have ever seen not just a Quakes game, but any MLS game where I see a team at the end of the first half had 81% possession compared to just 19 possession that the opposition team has. And I'm pretty sure most teams won't even get 25 shots in a game, let alone even the first half that the Quakes had. I mean, it was just a non-stop of fury kind of shots that was heading toward the Vancouver net. And the only reason why this game stayed at 2-1 at that point was because of the fact that Kripo was pretty much on his game, and that he is playing his best game of his life, and the fact that the Quakes once again missed some very big sitters that they should have clearly put the ball into the back of the net. Now in the second half, again, it's the same situation where we had a lot of chances to basically score a goal, and that Kripo was completely hung out to dry by the Whitecaps defense that basically didn't even show up in this game whatsoever. And just as I thought that, this is going to be one of those nights again where we're going to have one mistake in the second half, and that it's going to be like that Columbus game where we don't put away our chances, and that we just get hit by a sucker punch and we concede a goal. But thankfully that did not happen, and thankfully we did finally get that insurance third goal. And it's actually Andy Rios who, as I mentioned earlier, I talked about Judson wasn't the last player to get his first ever MLS goal. Well, Rios is the other player that got his first ever MLS goal for the Quakes in this game as he scores from Magnus Eriksson. It was a lovely kind of goal that he scored where he basically just bends that one to the left side of the post past Kripo and hits off the post and in. Like, no goalkeeper is going to save that effort. So yeah, that at that point it was at 3-1, and again, the Quakes, despite the fact that they were up 3-1, they still were trying to get that fourth, and that they just continue. Like, they were just showing no mercy to Vancouver in this game. And I'm guessing that 3-game losing streak really kind of make them very angry and just fired up for this game because they continued to put a whole bunch of shots in front of Kripo's net. And eventually Kripo did get the record in the 85th minute when Youngworth, of course, hits a free kick off the post. And originally that wasn't actually count as a shot because it actually was hit off the post, but they later said that it was a save because it looked like Kripo just got a fingertip to bounce that one off the post. So with that save that he has, that was of course his 16th save, which of course is the most save that any goalkeeper has ever had in a single game. And just to reiterate, the Quakes, of course, 43 shots in this game is the most ever in MLS history, and that the Quakes had 19 shots on goal in this game is the most ever in MLS. And just to also reiterate how dominant the Quakes was, they had 43 shots compared to 5 that the Whitecaps had, 19 shots on goal compared to just 2 that the Whitecaps had, 13 shots off target compared to 3 that the Whitecaps had, 11 shots that was blocked compared to none that the Whitecaps had, and possession-wise, 75% possession compared to 25% possession. And I know some people will probably ask me that, you know, as a Quakes fan, that has to be probably a very enjoyable night, and that I must have a very great time watching the Quakes just absolutely destroy an opponent. No. I actually did not. Like, I kind of enjoyed the fact that we were creating a lot of chances, but I definitely did not enjoy the fact that it took the Quakes that long for them to finally kill off this game, and that it kind of, in some way, this game reminds me a little bit of the Colorado game where it took so long for us to finally kind of kill off the game, and that once again, finishing is still a huge problem with this team. And that, you know, against the Whitecaps, a team that is already pretty much folding this season and already calling a quit for this season, you know, we can get away with this, with our poor finishing. But if we face against a better team, and if we face, like, even next week against Orlando City, we cannot afford to miss that many chances in a game and still able to walk away with a comfortable 3-1 win. It just does not work that way, and that, you know, I really hope that this team improve their finishing, and that Almeida's got to really, during the weekdays, got to basically keep doing shooting drill on this team non-stop throughout the week, because it's clear that the reason why this team is not in a better position of making the playoffs this season is that they just cannot finish, and that the finishing is the reason why we keep dropping those crucial points that we should have got in these last couple of games. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to complain the fact that we got 3 points in this, and that, you know, we of course move a little bit further away from the red line. But having said that, it's clear that we need to figure out that finishing problem that we've been having a lot of problem in these last couple of games. And as for Vancouver, boy, you know how earlier this season I said that in that RSL versus DC United game where RSL got absolutely destroyed by DC 5-0 in that game, and I said that was the worst road performance by a team this season? Yeah, Vancouver basically just took that title away from RSL. Like, yes, it was only 3-1, but if it wasn't for Kripo in this game, this would have been at least 7-1. And I'm not even exaggerating the fact that this would have been 7 or 8 or even 9-1 after this game. It was that bad, and it was just absolutely embarrassing in a Whitecaps perspective. But moving on into the next game is the Hell is Real derby. So in this game, obviously both teams are probably done for the season, and that really this is kind of like MLS Cup for both of these teams, as the winner of this game will really get that bragging rights over their rival in terms of them winning the first ever Hell is Real Derby. And in this case, it was Columbus that earns that bragging rights as they won 3-1 against FC Cincinnati. And then in the first half, Columbus absolutely dominate this game. Like, they just completely outrun this FC Cincinnati midfield and defense. And Jerzy Zardes, yeah, he created a lot of havoc in terms of this FC Cincinnati defense. He scored the first goal in this Hell is Real Derby in the 22nd minute from Diaz and Santos to give Columbus a 1-0 lead. Then it's Zardes again scoring from Harrison Affle. A beautiful ball from Affle to Zardes to, of course, give Columbus a 2-0 lead. And before halftime, Diaz basically scored the third goal from Pedro Santos to push this one to 3-0. And up until that point, I knew this game was over. Like, I know last time when FC Cincinnati went 2-0 up in the Hell is Real Derby, Columbus, of course, went back and come back to draw this game. But I just feel like the fact that FC Cincinnati is down 3-0 at home, and the fact that FC Cincinnati throughout this season has improved, that they can, of course, come back from a big deficit, I knew this game, of course, was over. Now, in the second half, FC Cincinnati did started to get back in the game, and they did started to try to maybe start a bit of a comeback in the second half, but that was all because Columbus kind of felt like they knew that the game was all over, and that they kind of really took the foot off the gas, and that eventually FC Cincinnati did get on the board when Kekuta Mane scores in the 89th minute to pull FC Cincinnati back within 2 goals. And then after this goal, there was actually a mini brawl that happened where it involved with one of the Columbus players decides to grab the ball, and then he doesn't want to give it to FC Cincinnati, who want to get the ball back to the center circle and run to restart the play as quick as possible. And then, yeah, I mean, this is an example of a rivalry, and that this is why I love Heineken Rivalry Week, because, when you have two teams that is very hated to each other, and when you have these kind of games where one team, of course, is embarrassing their rival, and that the rival is absolutely pissed off and absolutely frustrated and just completely lose their head, that is exactly what happened. Although, in some way, you can also say that Columbus, that was very disrespectful of them. Like, that was kind of a lack of sportsmanship, of the fact that, you're 3-0 up, and that you only have 1 minute left in this game. You don't need to just try to hold on to the ball and think that FC Cincinnati might have a chance to get 2 back in this Hell is Real Derby. But still, at the end of the day, I like that intensity that is shown in this game. And, nobody got sent off during that instant, and that, in fact, nobody actually got sent off in this game, which is kind of a bit of a surprise considering the fact that there was 9 yellow cards that was issued during this game. But at the end of this game, Columbus, of course, won 3-1 against FC Cincinnati to capture the first ever Hell is Real Derby. And the stats of this game in terms of the shots, FC Cincinnati had 14 shots compared to the 12 that Columbus had. Both teams had 6 shots on goal, 7 shots off target compared to 4 that Columbus had. 1 shot that was blocked compared to 2 that Columbus had. And possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that Columbus had. And that Columbus, they continued that good run that they have ever since the turn of July. And you just wonder with Columbus, if they did not had that bad run during between May and July, where they didn't win a game in 16 games, you wonder if this team would actually be in playoff contention, and that if they would have made those moves in the transfer window, which it seemed like most of the move that they have made in the transfer window has really paid off, you wonder if this team would actually be compete for the playoffs. Because right now, I think it's a little bit too late for them to make the playoffs, considering the fact that I think they only have 5 games left of the season, and they have a 7-point gap in terms of trying to get into the playoffs. And I just feel like that is just a little bit too much to overcome, even if they're on a hot streak that they're on right now. And as for FC Cincinnati, yeah, I guess they are really hoping that this first season can come to an end sooner or later, and also hope that they don't set the mark for the worst ever expansion team team to come into the league in history. Like, I actually don't know what's the record for the worst expansion team in their first season in MLS, but it's pretty darn close considering the fact that FC Cincinnati has only got 17 points so far this season. And finally, last but not least, in this Heineken Rivalry Week review, we got another blowout game in the Texas Derby with FC Dallas winning 5-1 against the Houston Dynamo, and that this game in some way was kind of similar to the Columbus versus FC Cincinnati game where really only one team was in it, although the difference is FC Dallas did not let up in this El Capitan Derby. In the first half, they started that dominance with them winning a penalty after I believe Baji went down, and of course they won a penalty, which Rito Ziegler puts it away to give them a 1-0 lead. Then Fiera doubles that lead from Odransky to give FC Dallas a 2-0 lead. And I also forgot to put goal of the week question mark there, because that was a great solo effort from Jesus Ferreira that basically just dribbled from the center circle and just completely cut through that Houston defense like butter on knife. So yeah, that of course gave Dallas a 2-0 lead at that point as they head into halftime. Then in the second half, it's the Cobra show, because Odranska, also known as the Cobra, scored from Holland's Head and Barrios to give FC Dallas a 3-0 lead. Then it was 4-0 7 minutes later when it's the Cobra scoring from Domenico Baji to give them a 4-0 lead. Now, Houston did, of course, pull one back when Memo Rodriguez scores from Minotas and Albert Elise, but you knew that was just a consolation kind of goal, and that Dallas feel like that they don't want to win this game just by 3 goals, and that they want to restore that goal that they concede in the 80th minute, and that it looked like they did it in the 90th minute when they of course scored that 5th goal. I think it was Ferreira that scored the 5th goal, but apparently it was disallowed because there was an offside on the development of play, which, I look at that replay a couple of times and I just don't see where exactly the offside is. Like, unless if I'm missing something, like when I heard the FS1 broadcast, they said that, oh yeah, this is the reason why it's offside. But when I look at it, it's like, really? Is that really an offside? I mean, if that is an offside, that must be one of the softest and one of the worst offside calls that I've seen so far. And the only reason why this is not getting a lot of attention is because up until this point, it was already a game that is pretty much done and dusted, and that Dallas was going to win big. But, Dallas, they were not only pissed off the fact that they got a 5th goal that probably should have been counted if it wasn't for VAR in that instant, and that they just seemed like they need to score that 5th goal, which eventually they did get it right before the final whistle when Barrios, of course, scored that 5th goal for Dallas. And it wasn't really Dallas, of course, scoring this 5th goal, but it was more like the Dynamo completely gifted the FC Dallas in this 5th goal, because first of all, one of their defender trying to clear the ball off, and then it hits off of one of their own defender's face. And then there was like 2 Dynamo players that was trying to clear it away, and somehow both of them swing and a miss and couldn't quite clear the ball away, and that it just ran right into Barrios that basically just say, thank you very, very much. I'm just going to slot this one into the back of the net and score our 5th goal. So, yeah, that was a very comical error from the Dynamo, and really kind of just sums up the game that they had in this El Capitan Derby, as they just look completely outclassed by this FC Dallas team. And in terms of the shots in this game, 17 shots compared to 16 that Houston had, 7 shots on goal compared to 4 that Houston had, 7 shots off target compared to 4 that the Dynamo has, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 8 that the Dynamo has, and possession-wise, 60% possession for FC Dallas compared to 40 that Houston has. And that, for Dallas, this is a good win for them to keep pace in terms of making the playoffs this season. And as for Houston, yeah, if their chances of making the playoffs is not done and dusted, I think this probably would be. Like, I just don't see how in the world this Dynamo team, despite the fact that they're only 6 points out of the playoff picture and that, the West is very wild right now, the way that they have just looked like they just give up in these last couple of weeks, and that you would think that them finally getting rid of Wilmer Cabrera is the answer, and finally getting an intern coach would be kind of the answer to their struggles so far. Yeah, that doesn't seem like it is the case, and that, yeah, it's going to be a long off season for the Dynamo, and that it's clear that something's got to change with this team, whether it's the ownership or the front office or just getting the right head coach that would fit with this team. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. I know this was a relatively long video for a 5-game review, but just like the midweek game where I had to do a kind of a bit of an in-depth kind of review, that's why this was a bit of a long review. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.